but I'm going to walk you guys through a pretty cool Twitter thread from this guy named Alex Thorne, and he did a little bit of investigative digging on the people that Harris would be choosing to essentially lead her crypto policy if she were to be elected. And this is important, guys. We have to remember people are trying to treat Harris and Biden, especially the media and Democrats, as two separate entities, which makes no sense at all. Why does it make no sense at all? Because Kamala Harris has been in lockstep with Biden's policies. The people who have been influencing Biden, surprise, are also the same people who are influencing Harris. There may be some nuance there. There may be some slight differences in the power struggle, but as we will go through this Twitter thread, which I think is very excellent, you're going to discover, wow, the old boss is same as the new boss, right? So I'm here to essentially give you the facts. It's not going to be my opinion. I'm going to give you some facts on what we're seeing with who Kamala Harris would be choosing to advise her on crypto policy. And then we're going to get into what some of her motives are and why some big players in the space are trying to quote unquote be bipartisan and tell you that Kamala Harris could be good for crypto. So let's look at this. So Alex Thorne, new evidence that Kamala Harris will continue the crypto crackdown. Her advisor choices suggest she will keep Biden's hostile attitude to crypto. Harris is working with Brian Deese and Bharat Ramamurti, two key anti-crypto officials from the Biden admin. Harris plans to unveil elements of her economic policy agenda in a mid-August speech. She's hired a top Treasury Department official, Brian Nelson, as an advisor, while also relying on longtime allies. When you hear longtime allies, you can just think establishment people, such as former policy chief Rohini Kasuglu and a trio of outsiders, Mike Pyle, her first economic advisor as VP, and Brian Deese and Bharat Ramamurti, two former Biden economic aides, is helping polish a refreshed economic pitch, drawing on the Biden and Harris records people familiar with the planning say. Great. So we got people from the Biden administration helping Kamala Harris. What does that tell you? Oh, and helping polish a refreshed economic pitch drawing on the Biden-Harris records. So the Biden-Harris records are anti-crypto, crackdowns, SEC, Gary Gensler, Elizabeth Warren. So that right there, off to not such a great start. We got some intel on the Harris campaign's current posture on economic policy and who they're working with. From some Bloomberg business reporting this morning, Deese and Ramamurti are two key architects of the Biden admin's anti-crypto crusade, including Choke Point 2.0, which, by the way, when you still bring up Choke Point 2.0 to some people, they still tell you that it's completely made up. It's all speculation. Bitcoin is going to continue to rise irrespective of what politicians decide. They may affect the rate rise, but BTC will BTC, not interested in other crypto. I know that opinion is technically correct, but I always think it's stupid for anybody not to focus on politics because as long as you're living in a nation state or a country in general, politics do affect how you live, what's going on. I mean, if you want crypto and Bitcoin adoption, yeah, you probably don't want to see unrealized gains tax, right? So simple things like that. I don't want Bitcoin mining to be banned or, not useful in the United States. So will Bitcoin survive without Bitcoin mining in the US? Yes. Is that what I as an American want to see? No. So of course I'm going to get involved. Harris supports raising the corporate tax rate to 28% from 21%. The people say fully in line with Biden's most recent budget proposal, which also calls for taxes on wealthy crypto holders. FYI, guys, if they are pointing out a specific subset of a individual in their plan, that means you're a top target. For them to say taxes on wealthy crypto holders means that they are going to go after you, just so you're aware. That's not just, oh, well, we're going to go after crypto people. We're going to go after people in oil and gas. We're going to go after people for their tips and in the service industry, in the medical industry. No, it is not completely normal to target specific groups in a specific tax plan. Normally they use broad overtures so that they can kind of finagle in different ways who they're actually going to go after. This is pretty revealing. They're going to directly go after crypto holders. There are no plans for Harris' campaign to announce sprawling new policies such as on cryptocurrency, the people say. The overall direction hints at something of a live and let live approach toward Wall Street, tempered by a continued antitrust drive and prosecutors' itch for enforcement. Prosecutors' itch for enforcement tells me, oh, we're going to let Gary Gensler continue to do what he's been doing. Under Harris, the short list for Treasury Secretary is expected to come outcome from the same as it was for Biden. Once again, continuity between the Biden-Harris administration. National Economic Council Director Lyle Bernard, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo, and Chief of Staff Jeff Zients are all candidates people familiar with the matter say. Harris has worked regularly with Adeyemo, in particular on some economic initiatives such as funding minority leaders. This shows you the priorities. By now, you should kind of get the point though. Like, I should not have to actually continue going through this, but I'm going to. But you should already get the hint. This is the Democratic nominee for the president of the United States. Does any of this at all make you feel bullish for the Democratic Party as far as Bitcoin and crypto goes? To me, personally, not really. So Deese, who is going to be the economic advisor helping write her policy, famously wrote a blog on the White House website, the administration's roadmap to mitigating cryptocurrency risks, on January 27th, 2023, just a little bit over a year ago. Not that long, guys. The blog claims to support innovation, but casts the whole of their crypto policy through a fraud and risk mitigation lens. One thing that is important to understand about how media works and about how government works is when these policy proposals are pushed and passed, you have to look at the phrasing and the framework around the document. So for example, if an entire document is based off the thesis of mitigating risk and fraud in an industry, that tells you that the current government in power views this industry through that lens. Now, you may look in the document and go, oh, well, there's actually some positive things in there, which a lot of people will try to do, but you're missing, what is it, the forest for the trees or the trees for the forest, whatever the saying is. The fact of the matter is that the administration puts the framework of a negative concept, saying it is a risk, there is fraud, as the major sticking point of their research, of their agenda. That's what's important to know. So Kamala's potential economic advisor and planner on policy comes from the framework that cryptocurrency needs to be mitigated from a fraud and risk perspective. Not a great sign. Harris advisors Brian Deese anti-crypto White House blog was published on January 27, 2023, that very same day. The Fed, that also same day, rejected Custodia Bank's membership. If you guys are on here and you're keeping track of what's been going on with Caitlin Long and kind of her war against the Fed in denying her a master account for her Custodia Bank, all over the fact that she's trying to be a pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin bank, you should check it out because all of this is related to what's going on. Sam, thanks for going over this. I've told people in crypto about some of this and they ignore it. Well, a lot of people want to ignore it because either they, one, a lot of people in crypto actually don't vote. So a lot of people in crypto just think voting is a waste of time. And we see that in our chats all the time, which I think is a huge mistake. And then a lot of people in crypto just want to focus on the bag and don't want to be politically involved. But these are important conversations. And it's our jobs, by the way, if you want to stay an informed voter. I mean, this is literally going to affect, if you're in crypto at all, the industry for the next 4 years. Because what the president does, or what the president is able to do through arms of enforcement is incredibly important. Let's keep going through this, guys. Now to Bharat Ramamurti. He worked under Deese at the National Economic Council. The two probably met at Yale Law, where they overlapped in the 2000s. Get this. And has extensive experience working for Senator Elizabeth Warren. And we all know Elizabeth Warren is the friendliest person to crypto and Bitcoin. So I'm super happy that there's all these Bitcoin crypto people advocating for Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is choosing economic and crypto advisors from Elizabeth Warren. Like, how hard is this? This does not have to be a 2 + 2 = 5 scenario. They're telling you what they're going to do. And these people are far more important than, oh, you're getting congressmen to talk, Democratic congressmen to talk about their pro-crypto agenda. Congress is huge, and there's only a few pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin Democratic congressmen and women. They're going to be overshadowed, as they have been right now, by a strong presidential administration, depending on the stand. And even so, even if Democrats in Congress are able to work with pro-Bitcoin Republicans, the president's going to veto it and push back. Like, the Democrats have a very top-down order, right? They don't really go against party lines. So just more evidence that the people I don't think are thinking this entirely through. Yeah, so look, he worked, that's just evidence that he worked for Elizabeth Warren, is what we're going over. Isn't that great? Warren for president. Super, super awesome. Guys, 2013 to 2019 senior counsel banking and economic policy for Elizabeth Warren. Like, what? Do I have to keep selling? Like, And this is all, I'm giving you guys this information. There is a Crypto for Harris meeting this evening, right? And we're clearly going over what the Crypto for Harris strategy actually is, right? Does this look positive to you? I don't think so. Fortune describes Bharat as the White House's top crypto critic. Leo Schwartz reported that it was Ramamurti who intervened to block the stablecoin compromise between Patrick McHenry and Rep. Maxine Waters in July 2023. So look at that. There's evidence that the guy Kamala Harris is going to be using actually intervened in bipartisan pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto legislation. A1, she's anti-private custody, which is the biggest point in crypto, being in control of one's assets. AB, most people that own Bitcoin does not understand the power behind Bitcoin itself. They only think of it as number goes up. Yeah, a lot of people do only think of it as number go up. A lot of people, it's only an investment for them, which, you know, in one sense, there's nothing wrong with that. Because that's just a part of adoption. But then two, yeah, of course, there's a giant underbelly of philosophy behind Bitcoin. I don't know if you guys can read this well, but I'll still read it to you. Ramamurti is the type of figure who wields massive influence in DC, but is largely unknown. Well, not anymore. Now you guys know who he is. Outside of the concentric circles of Hill staffers, lobbyists, and advocacy groups who shape U.S. policy, a member of Biden's transition team, an original member of the National Economic Policy, Ramamurti came up as a top aide to Senator Elizabeth Warren. Joining the Biden administration was one of the progressive wing emissary. He assumed a broad portfolio in the administration, leading pushes on core initiatives like student debt relief. Mirroring his former boss from Massachusetts, Ramamurti also became one of the administration's key voices against crypto. The near passage of stablecoin legislation in the House Financial Services Committee in July has become the stuff of legends in crypto circles. McHenry and ranking member Maxine Waters reportedly had a deal before the White House intervened to block it. The prevailing wisdom is that the call came from La Bernard, the new director of the National Economic Council and former member of Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Ramamurti apparently was on vacation, but people familiar with the situation told me that McHenry blamed him for gumming up the process. Ramamurti left the White House in mid-September, signaling a new chapter for the NEC. While Bernard remains a clear crypto skeptic, she seems more open to discussions than Ramamurti. I 100% believe that there's more of a path forward than there was before. Former White House staffer familiar with the negotiations told me. Yeah, well, I'm not too hopeful. You know why I'm not too hopeful? Because these people don't change. And whoever's pulling the strings and has these people by the leash, stay in power. By the way, Bharat later left the White House and was replaced on the NEC by John Donenberg, yet another former Warren aide. Guys, do you still think there's a possibility that Kamala is going to be pro Bitcoin? Like, does it even matter? By the way, I'm attending the Crypto for Harris call later this evening because I'm really interested to listen in and see how they gaslight people and see what their talking points are. By the way, the well-known primary sticking point was that Republicans like Patrick McHenry wanted to preserve a state pathway for stablecoin issuer registration, meaning that a state chartered depository bank, a state bank, could be allowed to issue a stablecoin. Democrats seem okay with this until Decent Ramamurti's intervention, at which point the Democrats decided they would only support a stablecoin bill if it gave regulatory authority solely to Federal Reserve and national banks. So this actually is a very good point on why the Democratic Party in general has not been very Bitcoin and crypto friendly. And it is because they believe that state rights and state banking specifically should be limited. So when you think, and we can go back to Dodd-Frank, I always say that Dodd-Frank was not an anti-banking bill. I say that Dodd-Frank was an anti-medium to small banking bill. What Dodd-Frank did is Dodd-Frank allowed huge, burdensome regulations to kill and quash smaller banks that couldn't afford them and created further power in the already giant banks that could afford the oversight and the regulation. So Elizabeth Warren has never been anti-bank. Elizabeth Warren has always been anti-small bank, anti-medium bank, and anti-state bank. She's a huge big bank federal banking shill. And that is why Elizabeth Warren doesn't like Bitcoin. That's why Democrats and these people don't like Bitcoin and don't like crypto at large, because what has always been the goal? The goal has always been this mishmash, trying to take back your rights as a sovereign and say, I can be my own bank. Well, if your goal is to just give further power to big banks, of course, you're not going to like the crypto and Bitcoin industry. So the Biden-Harris administration killed bipartisan legislation because it gave too many rights to state banks, which Caitlin Long talks about this. Caitlin Long talks about how we have always had a dual banking system. We have always had a dual banking system. What does that mean? We have federal banks and state chartered banks. They're supposed to be treated equal. But actually, under the Obama administration, we saw that equal treatment start to shift, where state banks got the shoe and federally chartered banks essentially became more powerful and got special treatment. That has continued till now, and that is the goal. The goal is to essentially get rid of the dual banking system, have one banking system, all federal banking, right, and quash the little guys. You guys want to talk about a nightmare scenario of control? We're talking about it right now, right? State banks are incredibly important, especially if you want, I don't know, state sovereignty or your local communities to grow. Federal banks are not going to give a crap about what city you're in, what your locality or community is. They just don't. All they care about is quarterly reporting in the bottom line and, of course, control. I don't know how you walk away from any of this and think that Kamala Harris is going to be pro crypto. I'll be attending the crypto Kamala town hall. Maybe I'll be live tweeting it. Maybe I'll be streaming it as well. We're going to see how it goes. See how much gaslighting there is. See if they answer any tough questions, which I don't think they will. And we'll see how this turns out. But in my opinion, ain't no way. Kamala Harris is not going to be the pro crypto, pro Bitcoin candidate in the past, in the present, or in the future.